Yeah, so I'm probably going to annoy a whole bunch of Invincible fans very shortly. Mark Grayson, aka, is a very lucky man.
I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. I just want to shoot him.
You're probably wondering how I can justify calling this guy lucky. Previous events can easily be justified as unlucky, whereas future events... Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Here's my thesis. Mark Grayson is a very lucky man because the vast majority of his fights have more been extreme training exercises rather than life-threatening excursions. Let me support my flawless theory by discussing the fights he's been in up to date based on the show. Now, before I get into the fights, let me provide some foundation to why he's lucky. Number 1, he's a Viltrumite, meaning he's basically a beast by default which just improves with age. And in this universe, where it feels like every second person has some kind of power, that's kind of a godsend. Imagine you're a regular day-to-day person, you've avoided multiple disasters, you're thinking, screw this, I need a holiday. So you go to chill on a beach, and then this happens. That is unlucky. Additionally, in the world of superheroes and powers, being a Viltrumite comes with its own political benefits. I'll get into this a little bit later on. Let's go over the fights. Let's start from Season 1. The Flaxons. The first invasion was really a warm-up. They didn't have the technology to do any major damage. Now, I say that in consideration to what the other villains do. And they get super old, super quick. Not much of a threat. The second attempt was a bit more serious as they don't age like before until they discover the wristbands are halting this process. They're kind of like that really annoying tough boss until you realise all you have to do is kick their shin a few times and you'll win. The third attempt, oh no, it's looking really bad guys, Invincible is done for. Nah, just kidding. Omni-Man has had enough time to heal and he comes in to save the day. Doc Seismic. He's at Mount Rushmore causing general shenanigans. So, fun fact about Seismic I wasn't aware of until researching for this video. He has a doctorate in seismology and has an undergraduate in sociology and women's studies with a minor in African dance. Anyway, this fight was only tough because Mark and Eve were focused on saving the surrounding people, so it's not really a problem. Alan. Mark's first meeting with Alan is just one big training exercise. Alan is literally an evaluator, he was never in any danger. Battle Beast and Machine Head's henchmen. Okay, so Mark, with the benefits of the Viltrumite DNA, he can take care of all of Machine Head's henchmen with somewhat ease. This guy on the other hand... Alright, so there's probably a good handful of people smugly sitting there wondering how I can justify Mark getting effed up by Battle Beast as lucky. Okay, well, strap yourself in. I don't deny, he did get very fucked up, but he's extremely lucky because Battle Beast saw him as unworthy. Battle Beast only wants to fight people that have the potential to end his life. That's the whole purpose of his existence. He was lied to by Machine Head, saw Mark and the Guardians as beneath him, because let's be real, they are, and he just bounced. Also, Omni-Man hovering there meant he had some kind of backup, but I think Nolan knew at this point in time he did not want that smoke. D.A. Sinclair. From what we see, unironically, the closest we see to Mark to actually struggle. I don't know, I feel if Rick wasn't brought back to reality, if William started to get really hurt, Mark just would have lost it and flattened these alpha Reanimen. We see him turn them apart in Season 3 with little problem, so I think the sewer Reanimen would have been clobbered pretty easily. That's my justification of that one. Omni-Man. Yeah, this fight was rough, brutal. Mark had a bad time to say the least. Why was he lucky? Well, in this particular universe, Nolan had no intention of actually killing Mark. He wanted him to join the Viltrumite Empire, even if what he was saying was just trying to convince himself in the process. It's a real shame Viltrumites don't get stronger by beatdowns like the Saiyans. But anyway, moving on to Season 2. More variants. This fight was definitely one of the closer calls. Mark is very lucky that the main Angstrom didn't want to have his utopia built on blood, otherwise it wouldn't have gone so well. See how I justified that one? Doc Seismic again. To be honest, this fight was just a bunch of fun. Big fan of the banter between Seismic and Mark.
Iron ripped from her loins! Bricks made of the clay she bleeds from humanity's endless ruinations!
Isn't that most buildings?
You can keep the ones made of wood.
Overall, it really didn't seem like Mark struggled all too much, and he dealt with him pretty easily. The Viltrumite soldiers. Okay, so one thing about this fight, he has Nolan as support, who is regarded as one of the strongest Viltrumites and is very well respected. But the main point I want to get across is the political benefits of being a Viltrumite. They are aware that Mark is Nolan's son, and he was bred with an acceptable race, humans, Now, we know that killing Viltrumites is very much against the rules in this new order under Thrag unless they have a very good reason to, and even then, if it can be helped, it must be via a ritual. The Viltrumites are very much interested in Earth, and thus they see potential in Mark taking over Nolan's position to prep Earth for the Viltrumite Empire, as noted by Craig. Also, Lucan adhered to Viltrumite law by giving Invincible an opportunity to demonstrate his worthiness for inclusion in the Empire. So, as brutal as this was, again, just one big training exercise. The Sequids. Sequid Invasion. I don't really have too much to say about them. I feel like they're just a filler villain. It's really hard to take them seriously. That and I can't really remember much from the comics. Maybe season 4 proved me wrong, but yeah, they dealt with it pretty easily. Anissa. It was made very clear that after Anissa fails to convince Mark and grievously beats him, she was not sent here to kill Mark. That would be saved for someone else. So yeah, she trains him for a bit and then yeets off, leaving to report back to Craig. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but his life wasn't threatened. He was just in a very serious training exercise. Angstrom. Angstrom suffers from what I like to call talking way too much. At least at the start, I don't think Angstrom wanted to kill Mark, but rather to cause him pain and make him suffer. So he kept him alive and tried to weaken him by sending him across multiple dimensions. Unfortunately for him, he flew a bit too close to the sun by hurting our MVP, Debbie, which Mark did not take very well. Understandably. Alright, moving on to Season 3. Doc Seismic again. Yeah, so Mark technically lost, but through the power of friendship, the day is saved. With the way the Doc is networking, I'm really worried about his 4th encounter. Anyway, Mark is just very lucky that Cecil works in the Grey and was able to sort out the situation, so... +1 point for Cecil. Cecil and the Reaniman. Let's be real, Cecil never wanted to kill Mark. This is more like a super realistic training situation. Cecil wanted to control and probably has PTSD from what Omni-Man did, which I think is completely understandable. So yeah, bad move, but understandable. At the very least, he understands the value Mark holds, and let's be real, deep down, he knows that Mark is a good guy. So he was never intending to kill him. Future Immortal. Yeah, it's a fight, as Immortal states that suicide is a coward's way out. But Immortal wanted to die, so really, his heart isn't in it. It's more of a lesson in the fact that it's okay for some people to die, so not really too much of a struggle for Mark. More like a psychological exercise. Mr. Lou. Yeah, this one was pretty messed up, I'm not gonna lie. The episode was filler, therefore not real. Mark was able to drill through his head, so I can only imagine that getting eaten probably wouldn't have finished the job. But yeah, let's call this one a tie. Powerplex. Powerplex has only recently got his powers, so he's obviously very new to all of this, and mentally he's extremely unstable. So their encounter, it's obviously very understandable that Mark did not have much problem dealing with him. Yeah, not much of a threat. The Invincible variants. With the exception of maybe these 3, it's somewhat safe to assume that Mark is stronger than his variants. There's a few reasons for this, that it may warrant its own video, but basically the argument can be made that these other variants strayed from the path of good, reducing the amount of conflict they came under. This means that they necessarily didn't need to train. The current Mark has been undertraining due to the threat of someone stronger than Anissa coming. Also due to Angstrom, the variants were under strict instructions not to kill Invincible. Angstrom. Ooh, look who's back, and kinda tougher now. Obviously his portals are a risk, but these metal ball things... yeah, they cut Mark, but come on. Anyway, Mark is at no risk of dying, as stated by Angstrom himself. Don't worry, I'll bring you back, once I destroy everything you love. Yeah, Angstrom is very much a threat, but Mark isn't at threat of dying just yet. Conquest. Alright, this fight is very different from the rest. It's the first real test. I think the reality hits Mark when he tries to use a timeout and Conquest seizes him by the neck, questioning if he has lost his mind, as he does not wish to offer Mark an opportunity to yield while he's enjoying himself too much. If it wasn't for Eve heavily injuring Conquest not fully taking it seriously, as he's having way too much fun, I don't think Mark would have been able to finish the job, and he would be dead. Basically, this is the first real fight, I think, where there was a logical threat. Conquest was there to finish the job. There was a 100% chance of a bad outcome to this fight. The long and short of it is, with the exception of Conquest, I think there's only been you can argue 3 fights where Mark was under a serious situation. The Mauler variants, D.A. Sinclair, maybe that one's a little bit loose. And Mr. Lou. But other than that, everything has just been a very big training exercise for him to prep him for the future battles from Conquest and moving forward. So, Mark Grayson is very lucky. And if you're wondering what the point of this video is, yeah,